Alright, welcome back. We are up to week 6 of criminal law and we were looking at assault. So last week we looked at voluntary manslaughter, the week before involuntary manslaughter. Now we're looking at assault. And assault is split into two categories, those being common assault and aggravated assault. And common assault is split into two categories, threat of force and what's the other one? Assault by force. Excuse me. And aggravated assault is split into actual bodily harm, and grievous bodily harm. So, common assault includes the threat of force and assault by force. The penalty for both is 2 years. Most of these incidences come from common law. There isn't really much statute on these, but we'll take a look. So, threat of force is a voluntary act without the consent of the victim, causing the victim to apprehend the immediate infliction of unlawful force. So this can't be done by negligence or omission, it has to be done with intention or recklessness. Recklessness can be things like, come over here or else. So like if I'm trying to put pressure on someone, come over here right now or else, that might be deemed recklessness of the immediate apprehension of force. Apprehension is kind of like anticipation, right? So if I feel like you're threatening me with violence, then that's, if I feel like you're threatening me with violence right now, because it has to be immediate, and that's a common assault by the threat of force. This is a very much victim-based crime, except for this exception right here, which we'll look at in a sec. So the victim must be aware of the threat. So if someone is asleep and then I go, I'm going to stab you right now with a knife, with a brandished knife, then I'm not guilty of the threat of force assault. And if I've got an empty toy gun and I draw it and I'm like, give me all your money right now, or else I'm going to kill you, that can still be a threat of force if you can't determine whether the gun is real or not. And the braveness of the victim also determines the crime. So this here is a case where one guy was stuck in a toilet cubicle and the other guy was outside and got a knife and stuck it through the crack on the door. And then the guy in the toilet, he didn't really care. He was like, well, it's that far away from me, I'm not in any danger. And so because he was so brave, the guy who stuck the knife was not guilty of a threat of force. That being said, if you pull that stunt on someone who's a coward, or someone who's got a fear of knives, and then they're like, well, that's really scary, then that might be a threat of force. So it's really all about just the victim and how they were feeling at the time. Threats of future violence don't count. If I say I'm going to bash you next week, that doesn't count because it has to be immediate. If there is an imminent fear of violence, it may or may not count. So we'll give a cold call example for this, where if someone gives me a call and they don't have a number or anything, and then they say, hey, I'm going to kill you, and there's no time frame, then this may or may not count as an imminent fear of violence, which leads to a threat of force. It's case by case. Same thing, conditional threats may or may not count depending on the immediacy. So if I say, give me $10,000 by next week or else I'm going to kill you, that might not be a threat of force. If I say, give me $10,000 right now or I'm going to kill you, that might be a common assault of a threat of force. Now, this is one example where it's not victim focused, it's focused on the accused. Stalking or intimidating a person under this section of this act with intent to cause fear or harm counts as a threat of force. This is an instance where it's not victim-based, only requires the intention of the accused. That's right, so if I'm stalking someone, the police catch me, and the other people didn't even know that I was stalking them, I'm still guilty of a crime. Assault by force is a voluntary application of unlawful force / without the consent of the victim. So consent carries a lot of, is the operating word in this scenario. Intention and recklessness are the fault elements. Again, it cannot be omission or negligence. I can't, not do something resulting in someone being assaulted. So indirect contact, such as throwing or spitting, can be assault. So what my lecturer was saying, everyone's in the hall, he said that if he closed his eyes, got a Nerf gun and went bang, shot it into the crowd, and then the bullet hit someone, again, it's just a foam bullet, but that would be a count of reckless assault by force. If there's no consent, any contact can be an assault. So if someone's walking down the street and I just put my hand on their shoulder and brush past them as they move along, that can be considered assault. Can be, maybe considered assault. This is where consent comes into play. The general rule, the general precedent from Browley versus the Queen is touching in incidents of social intercourse aren't illegal. If it was up to me, I would have said intercourse, I would have said instances, but what do you do? So if I'm on a bus and I'm standing up because the bus is packed and then the bus suddenly stops and I, tip over and fall down into someone's lap, well, first off, that's an admission, so I'm not guilty. But also, we're all in the bus, we all kind of agree that we're all going to touch each other, and that's just the way that it is. If we're in a stadium as well and I need to get out and I brush past everyone's knees, again, by contact, it can be assault, but because we all consented to being touched that way when we walked into the stadium, we all kind of, the consent element is kind of fulfilled in that instance. Children, can you smack your kids? The answer is, legally speaking, yes you can. You or someone that you designate. So a stranger can't just come and whoop your kid, right? But if you say to someone else, hey, my kid's done something wrong, can you, wallop him? Then that person can. Provided it is below the neck, so you can't get hit on the neck or the head, that's illegal. And the pain can't last more than a short period. So if you create a welt or a bump or a bruise, like if you've ever heard parents say, I'm going to smack you so hard you won't be able to sit down for a week. Well, fun fact, that's actually illegal because that's not, that's pain that lasts more than a short period of time. Crimes Act section 61AA. Oh, that's that. Okay, now this stuff, you can consent to. You can consent to assault by force. What you can't consent to is any sort of aggravated assault, which leads to actual bodily harm or grievous bodily harm. You can't consent to it. So actual bodily harm, wait a second, no, there's more things to this. Hold on. It can include injuries. So if there's an injury, if there's a certain victim involved, if it's done in a group, or if there's a specific weapon. Or if there's a specific weapon used, yeah. So, let's maybe just get rid of that. All right, there we go. So, yeah, so injuries. So an injury is something that lasts, right? So again, like if I do an open palm shove of someone and then they just fall back a couple of steps and then keep going on, that's common assault because, they're not really in pain. But it's not aggravated assault because they're not injured, they're just annoyed. So injury can include actual body harm or grievous bodily harm. Actual bodily harm is hurt that's calculated to interfere with the health or comfort of the prosecutor. Doesn't have to be permanent, just has to be substantial. So yeah, again, open palm shove, not really. A cut or a bruise, that counts. If it's a welt, again, that counts. If it's I don't really know what else it could be, but a broken bone, that's actual bodily harm. And the penalty for that, if you intend to commit that, is 5 years. Can also be defined as damaging both layers of the skin. Our lecturer mentioned that. Arvia Perkins defines grievous bodily harm as really serious bodily harm. So, we might look at, under common law there might be serious bodily harm, and then you have to determine what's the difference between serious and really serious. Also in Section 4 of the Crimes Act, it's defined as, if I can remember, any permanent disfigurement or any long-lasting disfigurement, something like that. I don't know. It's the definition is somewhere. We looked at it in murder, I remember. So menswear is either intended or intends to cause grievous bodily harm. Yep. Maybe let's try down here. Is it here? Okay. Oh, that's not very fun. Yeah, okay. So it's when you permanently disfigure someone, that's probably, or when you seriously disfigure someone or something like that. From memory, the definition includes things like if there's a pregnant woman and I punch her fetus and then the fetus dies, that's grievous bodily harm. If someone transmits AIDS to someone else without telling them, then that's grievous bodily harm. Or like in Home Alone, when the burglar put his hand on the doorknob and then it burned his hand, that's grievous bodily harm because it's permanent. But yeah, so if you intend to commit grievous bodily harm and then you do, carries a 25-year penalty. Sadomasochism, deriving pleasure from pain. That's illegal as it involves the indulgence of cruelty by sadists and the degradation of victims. That comes under R.V. Brown. I will I'll let you look that one up. That being said, in R.V. Wilson, which kind of contradicts R.V. Brown, generally stuff that happens in the bedroom between husband and wife shouldn't be interfered with. Yeah, so, I mean, R.V. Brown is a case where there was like 5 gay dudes doing sadomasochistic acts. R.V. Wilson is a case in which a husband and a wife were doing sadomasochistic acts. And so that might be the reason why this was deemed not okay and this was deemed okay. But I don't really know. I don't really know the reasoning, the rationale behind this. That being said, like people are likely to not report sadomasochism because if we both agreed to it and we both liked it, why would we bother going to the police about it? So that's that. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of things, grievous bodily harms and actual bodily harms that are just okay just because. So I've got a couple of things listed here. Piercings, that's permanent disfigurement. So is tattoos. So is circumcision. Yeah, so where's the line? Section 45 prevents female genital mutilation. So, if there was like a circumcision equivalent for girls, then that'd be allowed under this section right here. But yeah, these sorts of activities are just okay just because. Same with surgery. Surgery is actual bodily harm. You are, splitting someone open to, save their life. It's a bit of a legal grey area because, no police, if you're in a hospital, generally the doctors will have to get you to sign a waiver to say, I consent to being surgery done. That being said, if you're in a car accident, let's say you're unconscious and you're bleeding out and you have to get surgery straight away. Technically, on technicality, by the letter of the law, it is illegal for a surgeon to operate on you because you didn't give consent. That being said, no one's reporting that. If they did, surgeons would claim necessity as their defense, necessity being doing a small crime to prevent a bigger negative detriment. But yeah, as I say, no one's going to do that from a criminal perspective. Maybe a civil lawsuit, but probably not a criminal lawsuit. Contact sports is another thing. Like when I'm playing footy, we're all bumping against each other. Some people get broken legs, some people get bruises, cuts, that sort of thing. And that's okay, again, just because it is. So you consent to all rules of the sport as well as implied rules punishable within the game. Yeah, so for example, in soccer, you are not allowed to kick someone, right? But that being said, if you do kick someone with the spikes, then you might get a free kick. I actually don't know soccer too well. But yeah, or like in basketball, you're not allowed to shove someone onto the floor, right? But if you do, then it's a foul, they get a free throw. So you consent to being shoved because that's punishable within the game. Yeah, so Palente v stadiums, yeah, that's right. So once it goes outside of this activity, then it starts to become an assault. So for example, if during a break a player body slams an opponent and breaks their jaw, that's a crime. Or if the refs call the pause, all right guys, let's stop and let's line up for a free throw, and then a player shoves another player on the floor and breaks their arm or something, then we start to look at assault and actual bodily harm and all that kind of stuff. So a bit of statute law. So reckless grievous bodily harm in company is 14 years. If you do it by yourself, it's 10 years. Reckless actual bodily harm in company, so if a group of us get together and actually bodily harm someone, then that's 10 years. If we do it, that's not true. Reckless actual bodily harm in company is 10 years. So if a group of us all get together and go, hey guys, let's all get drunk and let's all drive this car together, haha, whatever, and then we hit someone and actually hurt them, 10 years. Reckless actual bodily harm alone is 7 years. So there you go. Section 54, grievous bodily harm by an omission. So this is, so grievous bodily harm by an omission is 2 years. Assault with intent to commit an indictable offence or avoid, resist arrest. So that's 5 years. An assault occasioning actual bodily harm with intention Is that correct? Let me just double check that real quick. Hold on, give me 1 second. Sorry, I've got another screen. I'll just look that one up real quick. Section 59. Yeah, that's right. So, assault committing actual bodily harm shall be liable to imprisonment for 5 years. That doesn't really make so much sense to me, because with intention is 5 years, but with recklessness is 7 years. So that's a bit strange. Yeah. If you do it with intention in a group, then that's 7 years. 7 years imprisonment. So yeah, I don't really make the rationale for that. We looked at a couple of other cases in class. So it's things like if you attack a clergy member, which is someone who is like a priest or something while they're carrying out their activities, then that's a specific crime. If someone is recovering shipwrecked materials and you assault them, then that's a crime. If you assault retail workers, then that's a crime. So it's all these specific instances that I didn't really bother to write down, although I probably should. Yeah, okay, let's tap that out real quick. So, 56, hold on. No assaulting clergy member. Section 57, no assaulting a shipwreck recoverer. I'm sure there's a nicer name for that, but that's what we're going to use. Section 60, no assaulting people going to school. Section 60G, no assaulting retail workers. Retail workers, that came from COVID. People would go to the shops and they'd have to follow rules, and then people get antsy and then assault retail workers. So that became a specific crime from COVID. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Common assault, threat of force, and assault by force. Aggravated assault includes actual bodily harm or grievous bodily harm, or harm that's caused to any of these specific people. You can't consent to it except if you're playing sport, and there are circumstances where aggravated bodily assault is okay, and these are listed here. So yeah, thank you for listening.